Welcome to Politics Done Right. I am your host, Egberto Willies. This is the progressive program that will take the mystery out of politics. This is the program that will encourage you to make sure government becomes we the people. Whether you are liberal, conservative, or otherwise, you get to air your point of view. Remember, you can also send me a tweet to EGBERTOWILLIES. That is, at Egberto Willies. Let us engage. It is politics done right.
1, 2, 3, 4.
Well, folks, welcome to one more edition of Politics Done Right. I'm Egberto Willies, your host. Thank you so kindly for being a part of the show. We are going to have a wonderful show today. I mean, earlier last week, I picked up, you guys who follow the show know that I really love Feedly.com, and that's where I get all my information. I aggregate a whole lot of news throughout the day to make sure that I'm bringing to you the type of information you need. You know that the media, controlled by the corporatocracy, is not going to be out there providing you with all the news. Well, every so often you find that real article out there. You find that article that really speaks to you, an article that should be speaking to many. And that's what we found. And what we did is we found the author of that article, Dr. Roy Eidelson. So before I talk about Dr. Roy Eidelson, I'd just like to bring him in to say a few words. Dr. Eidelson, it is my pleasure to have you on our show.
It's very good to be with you. I appreciate the opportunity to talk with you.
Before we get to the article, tell us a little bit. I'm going to give your bio, but without further from the bio, personally, tell us a little bit about who you are.
Well, I'm a psychologist located in the Philadelphia area, Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. Been doing psychology-related work for about 30 years or so. In recent years, I've been focused more on social justice issues and how psychology can play a positive or a negative role in those efforts. For the past decade, one of the areas of focus for me has been the misuse of psychology and psychologists in the war on terror, specifically the role of psychologists in torturing prisoners at Guantanamo and elsewhere. And my other big focus in recent years has been how psychological propaganda is being used to kind of obstruct the common good, how it's being used by those who are part of the 1% to advance their interests at the expense of everyone else. So that's kind of what I'm doing these days. I've recently published a new book called Political Mind Games, How the 1% Manipulate Our Understanding of What's Happening, What's Right, and What's Possible.
Well, that is where we come in. So let me kind of bring the program in. For those that are just joining us, I want to remind you folks, because Dr. Eidelson, what we have here is a show that's on Blog Talk Radio, Coffee Party Network, Pacifica Network, as well as Facebook Live. So this will be seen all over the place and heard all over the place. So as the people come in, I try to ask them to immediately on the Facebook platform. So please go ahead and share this information, share this show right now. The way the algorithms work on their Facebook, it requires you to play an important part in ensuring that this stuff is delivered to the maximal audience possible. Today's program is called Authoritarians, Plutocrats, and the fight for racial justice. Look, on the campaign, actually that was the title of Dr. Eidelson's piece. I was a little bit ahead of myself. The title of our show is Dr. Roy Eidelson discusses Trump, authoritarians, plutocrats, and more. And based on his earlier entry, you can see why and what it's all about. The subtitle of the show, Donald Trump is the instantiation of everything most despised in the plutocrat, the authoritarian, the oligarch. So why is he in power? You know, we discussed that. We don't do it in the form that is done on TV, but we discuss this. Anyhow, we promised that we would not waste time on the same stories one finds in the infinite loop on broadcast and cable news. In that light, today we bring you a very special guest. Those of you that are just coming in, share the program. This is a very special guest that we brought in here with an important not a point of view, but what I call the point of view. Dr. Roy Eidelson is a psychologist and the author of the new book, Political Mind Games: How the 1% Manipulate Our Understanding of What's Happening, What's Right, and What's Possible. There's a direct link in our program to his book. Please go ahead and make sure to get that book. You want to understand the pathology that is occurring right now. Understand it from someone who knows, who's studied these types of mental frameworks, if you will. The former executive director of the University of Pennsylvania Solomon Asch Center for Study of Ethnopolitical Conflict, a past president of Psychologists for Social Responsibility, and a member of the Coalition of the Ethical Psychology. In his current work, Roy focuses on applying psychological knowledge to issues of social justice and political change. His writing has appeared in a variety of scholarly journals and other outlets, including the Washington Post and Los Angeles Times. You can follow him online at www.royidelson.com. Eidelson is spelled Eidelson, royidelson.com. And his Twitter is at Roy Eidelson. For those of you who are watching on Facebook Live, you can see it on the screen. For those of you who are on Blog Talk Radio Coffee Network or on the podcast, again, you can find it in the blog post for the show. The blog of the week is the most prescient article Dr. Eidelson wrote, titled Authoritarians, Plutocrats, and the Fight for Racial Justice. It is it is a must-read article, not just for progressives, but for one's right-wing friends. Yes, and I have a whole lot of right-wing friends right here in my town, and they're Dr. Eidelson, they're actually pretty good friends of mine. So we follow the protocol. Anyhow, it is a must-read article, not just for progressives, but for your white right-wings friends. It will plant a seed. I guarantee you. Even we have quite a few right-wingers in our Facebook page here as well that are consistent listeners as well. I am sure you will be planting a seed in your heads as well. I won't read it as we have the author with us. So again, Dr. Eidelson, it's my pleasure to have you on Politics Done Right. And secondly, thank you for writing that most prescient article.
Thank you very much.
Now, I really like the way you started the article. So tell me, first of all, what was the genesis of this particular article? Because I read a couple of other things from you, and this seemed sort of to the punch, if you will. Well,
I've been focused on these issues for a while, but I was struck by what's been going on with the National Football League. I happen to be from Philadelphia, so, you know,
the Eagles,
first-time Super Bowl champions. Yeah, perhaps a little more attention as a result, but it was striking to see what owners had decided was the solution to their problem, which, you know, basically oversimplifying, you know, players may not kneel, if they're going to be on the field for the national anthem, they have to stand and behave respectfully. If they want to stay in the locker room, that's okay. So essentially, they caved in to what Donald Trump was pushing, going back to when he was calling players SOBs and demanding that they stand for the national anthem. And what he also did, effectively, unfortunately, is he misrepresented what the kneeling was about. It was a protest against racial injustice and police brutality, and he painted it as an expression of a lack of patriotism or opposition to what makes America great. And that's obviously, clearly not what it was about, but that rung true for many of his supporters, who then kind of came out in opposition to these players, in opposition to the NFL. Apparently attendance was down noticeably this year, and people attribute it, at least in part, to these protests. And the NFL owners had a choice to make, whether they would support the players' entirely legitimate concerns, whether they would support free speech, or whether, because ultimately what they seem to care most about is making money, or at least that would be true for most of them. They caved in to the president and came up with a policy that just seemed really wrong to a lot of people, including me. And that led to this article, which it focuses more on issues of how authoritarianism can line up with plutocracy or control by the 1%.
Now,
and I'm happy to say more about that.
Yeah, you mentioned, I want to explore something. You mentioned something called manipulative appeals. Explain that.
The focus of my book, Political Mind Games, is how the 1% target our deepest concerns and thereby manipulate us into believing things that aren't true. And as I lay out in the book, all of us, or let's say most of us, have 5 core concerns that govern our lives in one way or another. And those concerns, each has a question associated with it. One concern is vulnerability. Are we safe? So we're very sensitive to information or arguments that suggest we are or are not safe. The second one is injustice. Are we being treated fairly? Here, too, we're deeply concerned about issues of injustice. We think that such injustices should be addressed, but we can be misled about what's fair or unfair by those who have an ulterior motive. Third is, who can we trust in the world? And for this one, we tend to divide the world into those people we believe are trustworthy and those we think are not. And if we get it right, that's really good. But again, we can be deceived into trusting the wrong people. Fourth core concern is superiority. Are we good enough is the question we ask. We compare ourselves to others. We're looking for respect and admiration. And we will be responsive to efforts to kind of persuade us that we're good, that they are bad, they being outsiders in one way or another. And it can lead us to paint people in the worst light possible simply because they're different from us. And the fifth concern is helplessness. Can we control what happens to us? And here, too, if we feel that we don't have control over our lives, we become helpless, we become resigned to our fate, and it destroys any chance for personal or collective accomplishment. So with those 5 concerns, the 1% develop what I call mind games or manipulative appeals to make us believe things that aren't true. So, for example, they may tell us that change is dangerous. That would be a vulnerability mind game. They may tell us that they are the victims. That's an injustice mind game. They may tell us that they, kind of outsiders, people who are different, cannot be trusted. Another mind game about distrust. They may argue that what they're doing has a higher moral purpose. That's a superiority mind game. And in terms of helplessness, one of the mind games is don't blame us. Despite the power and control the 1% have, they're quick to say, well, there was nothing we could do when things go wrong. Those are just examples, but that's the context in which I refer to those manipulative appeals.
Now, Dr. Eidelson, you kind of hit a nail here on the head, and I want to kind of explore this a little bit more. It is. First of all, let me ask the question this way. Do you believe that the plutocracy, our oligarchy, if you will, initially, let's say subliminally wanted a Donald Trump in power? Is that something that maybe you're alluding to at all?
There are plutocrats who wanted Donald Trump in power for particular reasons, which is that he was likely to help them advance a self-interested agenda, which is basically greater wealth and greater power for them less financial security and less influence for everyone else. A lot of the people who wanted him in power, though, are, what I refer to as authoritarian followers. Much is said and written about how Donald Trump himself fits the mold of an authoritarian leader. But I think it's really important to recognize that authoritarian leaders get nowhere without followers. And there is an authoritarian style that we see in people who follow such leaders. And as I try and explain in the article, there are three characteristics that kind of capture what it means to be an authoritarian follower. First is submission to the leader. So we all tend to be deferential to authority, but authoritarian submission is much more extreme than that. Basically, it reaches the point of doing whatever the group leader says. So that's authoritarian submission. That's one. The second of the three is authoritarian aggression. And that's a follower who's ready to fight, attack, whatever it takes to defend the leader, whatever that leader may or may not be trying to accomplish. And the third is conventionalism. And authoritarian followers believe everybody should follow the norms and customs that the leader promotes as most important. So it's those qualities, the authoritarian follower, that helped put Trump in office. You can be an authoritarian follower without subscribing to one political view or another, in theory. But recent surveys indicate that roughly 3/4 of all authoritarian followers in the United States tend to lean Republican. So they were an important base of support for Trump, and they liked his message, which was essentially, I'm going to bring back law and order. I'm going to make this country great. We're going to return to the traditions and values that have dissipated or diminished. And it didn't matter whether that was true or what his motivation was. People bought it. They voted for him. And that's what they want from him. And this is a substantial block of American voters. And they also were undoubtedly very happy with his approach to the NFL controversy. He was appealing to that base when he lashed out at players who were, again, entirely legitimately protesting some very serious problems in our country.
Now, do you think that he is changing before that, do you think that he planned this? Do you think he came about this by accident? Do you really think he has the intellect to have known all these stages or these breakdowns that you've been speaking about?
I don't think he necessarily carefully and in a calculating way did this, but I think he had an understanding of it. I think he had people working with him who are masters of propaganda. And the 5 core concerns I mentioned, they're not unusual, they're not hidden, they're not secret. In fact, they're the same concerns that I believe progressives should be appealing to advance the common good. The problem is plutocrats use these targets in order to advance only their own interests. And what Trump was able to do was take advantage of the racism that's undeniably part of this country. There's no escaping it. And we should recognize it is possible to make big money, huge money, through racism and bigotry. And what that involves is racism being used strategically. So that's essentially what happens if someone like Trump takes advantage of the public's prejudices in order to gain office or power, and then uses that office or power against his own economic interests and those of the other 1%. So regardless of the extent to which he himself is a racist, and he clearly seems to be, he can still use the racism in the country to advance the 1%'s aspiration. And we see this, let me just give three quick examples. We see it in regard to mass incarceration, especially of Black Americans. Okay, that mass incarceration boosts the bottom line of numerous large corporations who are involved in the provision of food in prisons, or control the telephone use in prisons, or the health care in prisons. It's not just Black Americans. It happens from, you can get rich from the inhumane treatment of undocumented immigrants. Where do these people end up? Many of them end up in private prisons, which is a growth industry. And then third, the same dynamic works against Muslims and Muslim Americans. So you can make money. There are people who make money from the idea of a travel ban for Muslims and related efforts to portray Muslims as terrorists. And who wins here? Well, billions of dollars go to private defense contractors and intelligence-related agencies who prey on our fears in just this way. So it's an ugly situation when authoritarian, and one of the ugly outcomes is the preservation of the racial injustice that's so prevalent today.
Now, two more questions. The first one is, do you think Trump is changing the mindset of America, let's say with respect to race, making America more racist or not? Secondly, do you think that, second question to end this is, do you think, where do we go from here? So let's go with the first one first. Do you think he's actually changing one's mindset? And secondly, where do we go from here?
Well, in regard to the first, I think what's more likely is that he's giving Americans who lean toward being prejudiced more comfort, more support. He's activating their racist tendencies. I'm not sure that he's creating new racists in the country, fortunately, but we need to fight back against that regardless, which is part of what fighting against these mind games. That's why it's so important. So he's definitely emboldening those who have racist inclinations, and we're seeing that in any number of ways. And the second question?
The second question is, where do we go from here? I mean, you've identified how Trump came to be, how the plutocracy can actually make use of who he is to advance themselves, and it's something that you covered in detail in your new book. So my question I know you probably have this in the book, but where do we go from here? How do we mitigate what Trump has unleashed? Well, not what Trump has unleashed. I like to say what the Republicans started and Trump simply instantiated, if you will.
Yeah, I agree with you there. I don't. These are problems that have been developing for a long time and issues that haven't been adequately addressed. It's not. They didn't just start when Trump was elected a year and a half ago. In terms of where we go, what I think is really important is that we learn to confront and debunk the mind games that mislead people in the ways I've described. People will change their minds if they understand that if they better understand the motives of those who are misleading them and come to realize that those tales are driven by self-interest, if they better understand what is wrong with those arguments that are presented, if they better understand that Trump and others are trying to appeal to their emotions so that we won't use our critical reasoning powers to figure out that we're being misled. That's how they win. So there's a method which, by which we can confront and hold the ground against these mind games. And it basically involves what's called psychological attitude inoculation. So just to quickly describe it in a public health model, just like you get a flu shot, when you get a flu shot, you're getting a little bit of that virus so that you develop antibodies. And those antibodies will then help you fight off the full-blown virus if you come upon it when you're going about your daily life. In the same way, if we are prepared to deal with the lies and distortions that the 1% and Trump in particular bring our way, if we know in advance they're coming at us, this is what they're going to try and argue, this is why that's not true, and this is why they are pushing it in order to enrich themselves, then research shows we're better able to withstand those appeals and hold our ground, and we're better prepared to help other people do the same. We got to engage in conversations. We have to be out there kind of fighting for a progressive vision, and at the same time being willing to engage with and explore the views of those who don't share our own.
Dr. Roy Eidelson, psychologist and author of the book Political Mind Games, How the 1% Manipulate Our Understanding of What's Happening, What's Right, and What's Possible. The link is on the blog post. Go get the book. Dr. Eidelson, it was my pleasure to have you on Politics Done Right. Thank you so kindly for coming on and speaking about your article and subsequently about your book. Excellent, folks. Well, continuing with the program, what are your thoughts of what Dr. Eidelson had to say? I'd love to hear some of you call in. The telephone number is 646-716-5812. Again, that number is 646-716-5812. When I saw that article, it was it was actually speaking to what we talk about here all of the times. It is very important that we continue to find articles of this type. It is very important that we continue to share articles of this type. I said I wasn't going to read the article, but there is a passage in the article that I really wanted to get to folks, and I had it highlighted here before I came on to the show. And this is what he said and how he closed that article. Very, very important. But overt racism isn't the sole engine that drives opposition to Black Lives Matter and the NFL protests, and he means other things as well. Like every social movement, these efforts represent a treat to those who benefit most from the status quo, which is exactly what we're seeing. Atop that list are Trump himself and other tremendously wealthy Americans who choose to exploit their political power in order to advance selfish interests at the expense of the greater good. For them, billionaire tax cuts are worth any price, and outspoken celebrities. Let me remind you guys, today's blog post that I did on the market that is probably going to crash. We don't know how soon, but given that it's made up on false premises, again, we take a look at the tax cut scam that just occurred. We know that a lot of the reasons these stocks are going up is the buyback that they had on the stocks. It's also that there's going to be a whole lot more deficit spending, and believe it or not, deficit spending accelerates an economy. It's a Keynesian model. If you read my book As I See It, Class Warfare, the only resort to right-wing doom, what you see in that book is that in as much as Reagan spoke about cutting taxes for the masses, cutting taxes, well, you know who he really cut taxes for. In as much as Reagan talked about all of that about cutting taxes, What he never did is cut spending of any substantial nature. And in fact, he increased the defense budget, he reduced taxes, and increased the deficit by percentages we had never seen before. And you know what that did to the economy? It juiced it. Why? Because the economy is measured in the circulation of money in that economy. It's not about how much fixed amount of money you have in the economy, it's how fast you can circulate the money in the economy. You deficit spend, you buy more military stuff, you keep the social programs going, you get an accelerated economy. Trump just did that on steroids, man. What Trump did is take a look, read the bill. You know, he didn't really cut specific parts of the budget that affects a whole lot of his people. But yes, he did some stuff with health insurance, but even that's going to juice the economy. Because for those who really want health insurance, they're going to pay it at all costs, at all price. So let's understand what not only, I love that he had this little part in here, including professional athletes are serious annoyance. That's because they turn to public's attention away from and here's the kicker. This is the part that I really want you to get to. Because if you notice, I've always said the reason they use racism, the reason they use all the other isms to put us fighting against each other is because they have us not looking at them. They have us not looking at the ball. Here's what the doctor said. He said as follows. That's because they turn the public's attention away from the mass consumerism that one percenters work hard to cultivate, and also give voice to the mistreatment of millions who, in light of their circumstances, might otherwise never be heard. In short, authoritarians and plutocrats find common ground and shared purpose in the ruthless betrayal of democratic principles and equal justice under the law. That is what it's all about. That is what he explained. That is what he talked about. Folks, the telephone number is 646-716-5812. I would love to hear from you. 646-716-5812. When I wait for somebody to call, I want to remind folks that guess what happened in the news? I had one little piece of news that I wanted to put out there, and if I can get to it, and it said as follows, and it says as follows. Did you know that Democrats have flipped yet another state Senate race, this time in Missouri, in a district President Trump won? Democrat Lauren Arthur took 60% of the vote to Republican Kevin Corliss's 40% in a special state Senate race in Missouri's 17th district Tuesday night. Mr. Trump in 2016 and Mitt Romney in 2012 won both won the district by roughly 4 points. The seat was vacated earlier this year when the now resigned Governor Eric Greitens appointed Ryan Silvey to the state's Public Service Commission. And we all remember who that governor is. That is a governor who had apparently had some issues with a woman and some pictures. How moral, right? I love these guys. They're so moral. They do all the moral things that we would expect of. Isn't what they usually accuse the progressives of? Isn't that the case? Folks, call 646-716-5812. Remember, this is your program. If you want to change what we're talking about, you have the power to do so. Just make a call. If you want to be a part of the show, if you want to have your platform, just make a call, because this is your show. And since I wanted to get started immediately with Dr. Eidelson, I didn't go ahead and give our generic poll or generic info here, and that is, please do remember that Politics Done Right is a progressive show like many other progressive shows on the market. What we try to do is we come to you at minimal cost, if you will. If you're just joining in, please go ahead and share the show. The blogcast for Dr. Eidelson will be available sometime later on today. We'll correct the difference that you heard in the move, because we had to bring him over the phone to make sure that you could hear him clearly. So there was a little bit mix up with the voice and the image on the screen. We'll fix that up in post processing. Please go ahead and go to patreon.com/politicsdoneright. Again, that is patreon.com/politicsdoneright, and subscribe to the show. We bring you good folks from all over the country. We bring you folks from all over the country to go ahead and help us understand what's going on in the country today, to help us make a difference, to help us move this place forward. Again, if you believe in what we're doing, if you know we're doing what we have to do to move this country forward, if you know that we have to be the alter ego of the mainstream media, we have to be the ones out there giving and promoting news and information that they're not going to go through in detail. If you know that that is what we have to do, I ask you to go ahead and support Politics Done Right at patreon.com/politics done right. That is patreon.com/politics done right. Please do remember as well, folks, that we are I have a caller in, so I'll break from our break and bring the caller in. So let's see, 917, you are on. Come on in, sir, or person.
Hello, Alberto. It's Michael Rudin. And again, I just wanted to change the topic as you requested.
Well, you have the power to do so.
Winner? All right. Do you know about Reality Winner? She is currently being imprisoned. She's been in jail for about a year now after the espionage charges against her. I just wanted to hear what you have to say about that.
I know about her. I know that she was locked up. As far as I imagine you brought that subject up with the intentions of saying whether we should maybe have a campaign for Trump to add her to his pardon list or something. I don't know.
Something like that. I just wanted to get your opinion on it. Hopefully you'll cover it tomorrow.
Yeah. Now, I know who she is, and we covered her when it actually occurred Actually, that was early last year, if I remember correctly.
A year ago.
Yeah, it was a year ago.
Exactly a year ago.
Yes. Okay, great. So, yeah, we did it then. Now, what are your thoughts about it?
Never mind. I'll talk to you about this later.
Okay.
Bye.
No problem. Thank you very much for calling in, Michael. We'll go ahead and get some information on that, my dear friends. Anyhow, going back to our appeal for support for Politics Done Right, Patreon, patreon.com/politics done right. Please do remember that I don't ask folks to support this program while we support many progressive stations, not only here in Houston, but around the country. Here in Houston, we support KPFT 90.1 FM. We also support dailycoast.com, DAILIKOS.com, as well as opednews.com, as well as the democraticunderground.com, as well as coffeepartyusa.com. We make sure to walk the same steps that we ask you to walk with us, and that is to help us keep progressive programming on air. It is essential that we do so. If we don't do so, remember, if you listen to Dr. Eidelson, what he was clear on is that this is what the plutocracy is doing is by design. Trump is by design. Many would have you believe that Trump was just an accidental winner, when it was clear that Trump could win. The plutocracy knew that it had a puppet in the office. They knew that they could just have him there, and he, as Paul Ryan once said, all we need is his right hand. They tolerated anything that he did. The Republicans are tolerating absolutely everything that Trump is doing. Not necessarily because they agree with it, not necessarily because they want to, but because all they want from Donald Trump is that right hand. And that right hand has served them well. They got their Supreme Court justice. They got their tax cut scam. And they walked off very happy. They killed us with what they said would have been a $1.5 trillion deficit. Now it seems to be, it's going to be quite a bit more. The deficit in 1 month has been over $250 billion. Multiply that by 12, and you see what we're talking about as far as what we're looking for in the total deficit. It's about to blow. This morning, and let me what I'm going to do here is, since I don't have any calls, and before I go to the boards, bear with me 1 second, because what I want to do is point out to you something that was said by, I don't know if you guys know who David Stockton is. David Stockman, that is. David Stockman was the OMB director for Donald Trump, for Ronald Reagan, when he created his voodoo economics, also known as supply side economics, also known as Reaganomics. So that's what, that is what he came out with. Well, anyhow, as it turns out, he's all over the air right now trying to tell people, please, folks, it is essential that you don't fall into the trap because something is going to happen. And what he said, and I wrote a blog this morning about it because what he said was prescient, right? A lot of the people that came on are trying to dismiss him. So I wrote a blog that said, those who are in this stock market fiction better heed the warnings from Reagan's OMB director, David Stockman, who found truth during the instantiation of voodoo economics, supply-side economics in real time. I mean, after he was with Reagan for a while, he came out and said, this stuff isn't going to work anyway. This stuff doesn't add up. He came out and said that and got in a whole lot of hot water then. The tax cut was a scam that pilfered most Americans, and the inflated stock prices will leave another group holding the bag, in my humble opinion. What do I mean by holding the bag? The way the stocks work is as people buy stocks and the prices go up and people start seeing the prices go up and they start to buy more, the euphoria sets in, like the euphoria has set in right now. And those people who are selling high right now are the high rollers, those guys who have money. And just before the crash or just near the crash, by then they're out of the market. And guess who is held the bag? Who's holding the bag? You are. And how did they do that? It has to take a listen to how Dr. Eidelson spoke about the mindset as well, and how you convince people to do things. All of that plays into the game. So by then, it's another form of extracting your wealth, right? Think about this. We always talk about how these people extract wealth. It's another form of extracting your wealth. The prices of the stock goes up. The rich guy sells it to you. He takes your money, right? The stock market, the prices fall again. You have no money left. You have less than you started with. And then you have to grow again. And then you have to grow again. And when you grow again, it repeats. And he takes your money again. And people say, oh, that's not really how things are working. All you have to look is the numbers that we have right now. And we just have to look at the inequality. And we calculate how the inequality came about. And guess what? It is true. That's how things went. So this is how CNBC reported it. They said, President Ronald Reagan's Office of Management and Budget Director blames a bull market that's getting longer in the tooth, paired with headwinds ranging from President Donald Trump's leadership to fiscal policy decisions to questionable earnings. I call this a daredevil market. It's all risk and very little reward in the path ahead, Stockman said Tuesday on CNBC's Futures Now. This market is just way overpriced for reality. For which I ask you, take a look around. What is so growing in the American system? What is so growing in America right now that justify the prices of stocks that we have right now? I don't see it. If you see it, write it down or give me a call. His thoughts came as NASDAQ was reaching all-time highs again, while the S&P 500 rose slightly, but the Dow failed to extend its win streak to 3 days in a row. The S&P 500 could easily drop to 1,600 points because earnings could drop to $75 a share the next time we have a recession, Stockman said. What does that mean? If it drops to 1,600, that means stock prices cut in half. Look at your 401k right now. Think about that number being cut in half. Again, think about your 401k. Think about that number being cut in half. We're about 8 or 9 years into this expansion. Everything is crazily priced. I mean, the S&P 500 at 24 times at the end, tippy-top of business cycle. One of the biggest gripes with the bulls is the notion that President Donald Trump tax cuts are provided a fundamental lift to stocks. Ha ha! These tax cuts are going to add to the deficit in the 10th year of an expansion. It's just irresponsible crazy, he said. It's all going to stock buybacks and M&As, that's acquisitions. deals, any mergers and acquisitions deals anyway. That doesn't cause the economy to grow. It's just a short-term boost to the stock market that doesn't last. So when you get all these people buying companies or whatever, remember, they're producing absolutely nada, niet, nothing. But those stock prices somehow go up. Think about what that means, my dear friends. Think about what that means. Anyhow, dismissing stockmen in the current stock market euphoria is easy. I mean, when those stock prices are going up, we're like, oh my God, this is some great stuff happening here. But one must ask oneself, where could the growth possibly come from when the current economic policy provides no stimulus to build infrastructure spending? No. To invest in the future? More money for education, including student debt relief? No. A healthcare policy that gives people stability needed to invest and innovate in what they can bring to an economy? No. Where is this stock? Why are these markets going up? This has nothing to do with labor. This has nothing to do with somehow we are producing more. This has nothing to do with any of that. These are financial instruments that destroyed us in 2008, and new financial instruments will destroy us maybe 2019 right after the election. Or maybe before the election. Who knows? They may want it to crash before the election. So let's go now to the boards and see what our fine people are saying. Bear with me as I do so, my friends. Let's go there and see what you good folk have to say. All right, come on, let's go. There we go. All right, Michael Rudnin. Let me make sure I get it from the beginning this time, if at all possible, because I have a tendency not to get it from the beginning, or there are times that this guy just simply misbehaves. But let's go ahead and get this done. All right, come on, scroll down. Let's get you up and running. All right, we're refreshing now, and we'll have some good information for you guys, for the ones that are on with us. Let's go and scroll all the way down. William McLeod, welcome aboard. Deborah Borgen, Deborah Ann Borgen, welcome aboard. Michael Rudnin, or regular aboard. Kathleen Maureen Morgan, my coffee party sister, welcome aboard. Bruce Pollard, regular, welcome aboard. Sue Brochu, welcome aboard. Matthew Thielman, thank you, kind member, as well as Bruce and others. Mike Cisak, Sue Brochu, all of you guys, thank you for being here. Now I read what you have to say. Good afternoon, William McCloy. Good afternoon, or hello, Deborah. Michael Rudnin, reality winner, has been in prison for over a year. Hope to cover tomorrow. I'll try to mention it tomorrow. I'll be at KPFT 90.1 FM tomorrow, my dear friends. Let's see. Michael Rudnin, Trump disinviting the Eagles after line about them kneeling. They were praying. Well, here's the real story. The real story is there was only one Eagle that was willing to show up. One Eagle, the quarterback, was willing to show up. Michael Rudnin, that said, athletes protesting the president by skipping the White House visits after an invitation. Okay. Sue Brochu. Now viewership is going to go down because true patriots don't like dictatorship of their leisure activities. True. Matthew Tiemann, I'll tell you what's at the bottom of it, he said. If you can convince the lowest white man he's better than the best colored man, he won't notice you're picking his pocket. Hell, give him somebody to look down on and he'll empty his pocket for you. You know who said that? And that, I heard that before. I heard that several times. Thank you for reminding me. That came from Lyndon Johnson. Lyndon Johnson, President Johnson, Texan, said that. Thank you for bringing that up, Matthew Tiemann. That is so important for people to realize. Viewership will go back up because the owners of football teams stood up to the players who were propagating a falsehood. That is not true, CSAC. Come on now. Here is the thing. I am waiting. There are guys like Dr. Eidelson who understands truth. Okay, he's a white guy who can actually look at what has happened with police brutality and say, yes, there is something there. For you, Mr. Cisak, my good friend, my conservative friend, to put blinders on, to not understand what is occurring in this country, the difference in the way police treats different groups, And to have athletes go ahead and protest that and have a president lie about the cause or the reasons for their protest is not only disingenuous, it is evil. It is an evil. And why is it an evil? Because you're taking the most important pastime of Americans and you are turning it into a racial divide that doesn't belong there. It is evil. Completely and entire evil, my dear friends. Evil. Michael Cisak, I know you're a good person. I've spoken to you. Open your eyes, my friend. There is a problem in this country in the way police officers treat the others. And you know what? There are at least 30-something% of white folks that have finally looked at it and cannot believe their eyes. There's another 30% that wish their eyes are deceiving them. And there's another 33% that says, well, hell, we are racists. Go ahead and do that. My dear friends, come on. We want to be a better country. You know, I preach race as a social construct. That's all it is. I don't think race means a damn thing. Pigmentation, I'm sorry, means a damn thing, not a damn thing to me. Zero. Zilch. I think I'm better than no one. I think no one is better than I am. And I think every single person walking on this planet should feel that way. Whomever you are just as good as anybody else. There are some who must feel, for some reason, that they have to be better, and it's manifested in many ways. It is manifested in police brutality. It is manifested in that person that doesn't give you the promotion. It is manifested in a whole lot of ways. You have to open your eyes to see it. I had a great discussion with a great guy at Starbucks just a couple days ago. I wrote a blog about it. Read it. And not only read that blog that I wrote, please read what I have as far as articles that may plant seeds and open your mind. Mike Cisak, you are better than that. Trump attempts all these mind games. When you add it up, it's gaslighting. So true, Subrochu. Subrochu also says softwarekey.org, swkey.org. Southwest Key makes money housing unaccompanied immigrant children. Look into them, Egberto. They wouldn't let a senator view their facilities. And you know why. Because as the senator has told many, they're treating them as if they're dogs at a kennel. Okay, yes, there's audio video desync, we have some work to do with bringing some of the callers in, and we're trying to figure it out. They changed the Wirecast software, and what worked before didn't work. We had Dr. Eidelson call in earlier to kind of get things out, and we found out using the phone was the most effective thing. In the podcast, in the vlogcast, I will clean the audio up such that the audio matches the lips. I did that with the show yesterday as well. After the show, I'm going to rewatch the intro. Those 5 points I'm going to need to reshare and detail to my page. So very important, Michael Rudnin. His points are there, and encourage others to purchase his book as well. We need to support these people we need to support folks who are doing good things. Dr. Eidelson's book needs to sell. And I'm not talking about sell because for him or whatever. I'm saying because it's a good book, because the things that he covers in the book are important, and it plants that seed, it fertilizes that seed that allows us to understand the pathology that is occurring on the right. So we should be happy to try to get those out. Let's see. Michael Rudden, worst case scenario, Trump will add over $7 trillion to the debt. I don't know if that's a worst case scenario. I think it's a lot more than that. But anyhow, the stock market has ballooned 300% the last 8 years. So true. Dalea Lugo, welcome aboard as well. Michael Rudden and Fury, Mark. Close the loophole that allows congressional members to use insider trading to buy stocks. I mean, that is so obscene that they do that. It is so obscene. It behooves me that they can actually get away with it. ICE and Border Patrol are monstrous agencies that need to be abolished. Senor Rudnin, you're absolutely correct. It needs to be abolished. Folks, I thank you so kindly for listening to the show. I am going to later on, I'm going to clean up that video with Dr. Eidelson, and here is what's most important. I'm going to separate that video from the show itself, because I think standalone it is a powerful piece that we need to share widely with all our folks around the country, as far as the pathology of those that are leading the right. And notice what I'm saying, the pathology of those that are leading the right. I forgive those the folks on the right, the average person that are just getting information from their leaders, from their news channels, etc., because it is easy to fall prey to that. We should all be forgiven of that. We should, I'm not a Christian. I'm a humanist. I believe in human beings. I love humans all. I don't care what ideology, whatever. I love human beings, and my sole purpose in life going forward is to support that which support humans going forward, to be better people, to be better supported, for us all to be better supported. These types of books, these types of programs. In fact, let me go ahead now and bring my cue in again. Please, folks, if you're just joining us, please, there's several things you can do to make sure the progressive message goes out. And that is, first of all, share this program, share the videos, share the blogs from egbertowillies.com, from politicsdoneright.com, from theliberalnetwork.com, from singleparhealthcarenow.com. Share these blogs when you get them. So important on Facebook. Also, you can become a subscriber of Politics Done Right, and I ask thee to become a subscriber of Politics Done Right. Politics Done Right, a subscriber. Go to patreon.com/politicsdoneright, and that will be, you will do that much more to ensure that we get our message, the progressive message, out. We support dailycoast.com, opednews.com, thedemocraticonderground.com, coffeepartyusa.com, KPFT radio, and many others. We put our support exactly where we are asking you to put your support as well. Support Politics Done Right, patreon.com/Politics Done Right. I want to thank you so kindly for being a part of the show. I want to thank you so kindly for giving Dr. Eidelson a hearing. I'd like to suggest to you that you go out there and get his book. My name is Egberto Willies. This is Politics Done Right. You know how I'm going to end this, baby. I am out.
Welcome to Politics Done Right. I am your host, Egberto Willies. This is the progressive program that will take the mystery out of politics. This is the program that will encourage you to make sure government becomes we the people. Whether you are liberal, conservative, or otherwise, you get to air your point of view. Remember, you can also send me a tweet to EGBERTOWILLIES. That is, at Egberto Willies. Let us engage. It is Politics Done Right.
1, 2, 3, 4.